Hello and welcome. Today, we have several interesting stories, including one about a man who confessed to never seeing his wife's breasts after 10 years of marriage. First story. My mom bragged about how she kept my dad out of my life. I grew up hating him, thinking he abandoned me. Sorry for my terrible English. I, 19F, grew up with a single mom. Growing up, I was always told my father abandoned me. It happened when I was around 10 when I asked my mom about my dad and she told me straight he abandoned me. I cried so much that day, it's not a joke. As I grew older, I hated him even though I never met him. I thought about if he came back I would scream at him, ruin him, attack him for leaving. Last week my mom and I was at her friend's house. I went along because I'm friends with her friend's daughter. Well, fast forward, I came downstairs and heard my say my name. She revealed my dad's name and said, "It's easy to keep a father out of a kid's life like what I did with Lena's, me. Father, after I found out he cheated on me."
She was also talking about how pathetic he looked when he pleaded with her to stay in my life.
She also added how she used his old drug addiction against him in court. So from how I understand, he was sober before I was born. I made contact with my bio dad as soon as we got home. The next morning I got a reply. He asked for my number so we can talk. The first thing my dad said when he called was to apologize. He told me it was all his fault. After talking with him for a while, I told I'd love to have a relationship with him. He lives not far from our city, a 2-hour drive. As for my mom, she is at work. I sent her a text telling her about what I heard, and I'll be cutting off contact with her for a while and probably forever. The top replies, "That is an awful thing to do to your kids. I'm glad you made contact with your dad. It's never too late to work on your relationship with him. If my husband and I ever got divorced, I wouldn't keep him from the kids. That would punish my innocent kids. I don't get women like this. As a mother, I put my kids first always and what is best for them." The second reply, "I hate parents that keep the kids away from the other parent just to spite them. Unless the other parent is a drug dealer or works for the cartels or crap like that, no excuse for it. My ex-wife did that to her first husband, kept the 2 kids from him, and he would beg her to see them, but no, to spite him, she kept them from him and she would tell the kids, 'Oh, your father is out having fun with his new wife and has no time for y'all,' which was nonsense. And sadly, the kids grew up hating the man. It wasn't until a few years after we divorced when I ran into him at a restaurant downtown, and I told him I hated how she did that to him and it was unfair and cruel. BC, he missed them growing up. Last I heard, he and the 2 kids reconciled and they apologized for hating him since they never knew the truth." The top replies, "Original poster. I know Reddit is quick to say, lawyer up, but this is a situation where one would be a good idea. You need to make sure that you protect your assets as well as make sure that your mom hasn't been trying to pull shady stuff without your knowledge and consent. For example, either forging your signature or getting you to sign something under the guise of it being something else." The second reply, "That is an awful thing to do to your kids. I'm glad you made contact with your dad. It's never too late to work on your relationship with him. If my husband and I ever got divorced, I wouldn't keep him from the kids. That would punish my kids who are innocent. I don't get women like this. As a mother, I put my kids first always and what is best for them." Third reply, "I hate parents that keep the kids away from the other parent just to spite them. Unless the other parent is a drug dealer or works for the cartels or crap like that, no excuse for it. My ex-wife did that to her first husband, kept the 2 kids from him, and he would beg her to see them, but no, to spite him, she kept them from him and she would tell the kids, 'Oh, your father is out having fun with his new wife and has no time for y'all,' which was nonsense. And sadly, the kids grew up hating the man. It wasn't until a few years after we divorced, when I ran into him at a restaurant downtown, and I told him I hated how she did that to him and it was unfair and cruel. BC, he missed them growing up. Last I heard, he and the 2 kids reconciled and they apologized for hating him since they never knew the truth." Edit. So I did not mention this only in a comment about the house. I inherited my uncle's house after he died, and that is when mom started acting weird. She believed that the house belonged her and fought with my grandfather over, but he put his foot down and told her it's my house. Secondly, when I turned 18 and moved into the house, my mom came along. I didn't want to live with her again, but she told she'll cut off my college fund. Well, now my grandpa told me he'll pay for my college. Also, more about my mom. When my parents split up, my grandfather told her he doesn't support her decision to keep my father out of my life, but she told him then he will never see either. Also my mom acts like my house belongs to her and always told me, technical, it's my house and should have been given to me. Edit 2. Another thing, my father quit drugs long before he met her. I confessed to this also. I was told by my grandpa not long after telling my mom she is no longer in my house that my dad loved me with all his heart when I was only a couple of months old. Apparently my dad almost made it impossible for other to hold me. Next thing is that my dad did confess to cheating. I already asked my mom to explain her side and she said was yes, he did quit drugs long before he met her. However, that's about it so far. All she wants is for me to forgive her. I did ask my dad for his side. He hasn't replied yet, but he told me he'll call me later. Second story. Am I the idiot for making a scene when my fiancé tried to pay for my things? I went shopping a few days ago and my fiancé wasn't supposed to be there, but he kept insisting we had things to talk about, so he showed up. When I was going to pay for my things, he gave me his card and told me that he would take care of it from now on and I shouldn't spend my dad's money anymore. Things are rocky between my fiancé and dad, which is why I think he said it, but the entire thing rubbed me the wrong way. I pushed his hand away and told him I didn't need him to pay for my things, but he ignored me and paid anyway. I was mad, so I asked him what the hell he was doing and told him to stop being a dick. He told me I was welcome and to stop making a scene. I kept bringing it up and telling him he was being a dick, so now he's annoyed at me and saying things like I need to get used to not living under my dad's thumb anymore. Am I the idiot? The succinct answer. I think we need a bit more background, to be honest. Why is your dad paying for things still? How come you don't have your own money? Why are things rocky between your fiancé and dad? Why is your fiancé worried about you spending your dad's money? The original poster replies, I'm doing my master's, so my dad still supports me until I finish or get married. My dad is angry at my fiancé because of how his parents reacted to our engagement, and my dad is trying to get him to respond in a certain way, so they're butting heads. I think it's because he's having issues with my dad right now, but he'll get over it eventually. The third reply. Not the idiot. Hate to break it to you, but your fiancé thinks of you as a possession, not a person. He wants to make sure you know that you belong to him, not your father. If you don't like that feeling, maybe try paying for your own things once in a while. The third story. My fiancé, 28M, shot my dog in the head, shot me, 21F, in the face, then killed himself in front of me. I am struggling to cope and I can't get it out of my head. I think about why he did it so often. I wonder if he thought he'd killed us and screwed up, so he killed himself before I had a chance to process or stop him. It keeps me up all night and day. The questions I have that will never be answered. The thoughts are so overwhelming I can't breathe majority of the time. My dog survived with a bullet shot to his head, and one shot in his back leg with hollow point bullet. I survived with bullet going through my jaw and breaking it, exiting out of my chin. I mean, I feel like he literally wanted to kill us. Which I feel like I should hate him for, but I do not. As much as I want to, I can't. I've reached out to his family, maybe to grieve together or help with some closure, and they completely shut me out, making it feel like it was my fault. I understand they're grieving too, but it hurts. All of this has only just happened 2 weeks ago. I couldn't go back to that place after what happened. 2 days in the hospital, someone broke in and stole everything I've ever had. My purse, my director tie clothes to my clean clothes, everything of his as well. I left the hospital in a pair of PJs. I only have me and dog. I am starting my life completely over again, and it truly is hard. There is no motivation or passion in me after what happened. I can't even imagine the trauma my dog is dealing with, what's going on in his little brain. I am trying to heal for both me and him, but I've lost hope and I don't think I ever will. I just don't understand why he would do this to us. I'll never know why he left me here to suffer. I'm stitched from my jaw to my chin with my mouth wired shut, and even just looking at it, and looking at my dog's head takes me back to that day. Anxiety meds kind of help to a certain extent. They just make me too sleepy to be able to think, but it doesn't last forever and the battle starts again. The top replies, yes. He planned this, then went through with the plan. His plan was to carry out a murder-suicide and include the dog for good measure. I'm sure he thought he had succeeded in that millisecond before pulling the trigger on himself. It is miraculous that you and the dog survived. There is just no point at all in trying to figure it all out. Reasons, motives, blame and whatnot. It makes no difference to anything, changes nothing. Be glad you're alive and understand that he did what he did for very selfish and twisted reasons, none of which you had any knowledge of or control over. Get some solid therapy and only look forward, never back. Second reply, yes, he planned this, then went through with the plan. His plan was to carry out a murder-suicide and include the dog for good measure. I'm sure he thought he had succeeded in that millisecond before pulling the trigger on himself. It is miraculous that you and the dog survived. There is just no point at all in trying to figure it all out. Reasons, motives, blame and whatnot. It makes no difference to anything, changes nothing. Be glad you're alive and understand that he did what he did for very selfish and twisted reasons, none of which you had any knowledge of or control over. Get some solid therapy and only look forward, never back. Third story. I don't know what my wife's boobs look like. My wife and I have been together for almost 10 years. We have had sex less than 50 times, which we attribute to her hormonal birth control causing low libido. When we do have sex, it's always missionary with her motionless on bottom, in the dark, and she keeps her shirt on, pulling it down if I try to pull it up. I've tried to help with her insecurity, but she doesn't like it. I've tried asking her what I could do to make it better, but she always says she'll think about it and then never tell me. I'd like to think I'm unselfish in bed since there's unreciprocating oral, and sometimes she doesn't want to continue on after that. I respect her boundaries and want her to feel comfortable, so I have stopped pushing for anything more. When I'm really erotically charged, I will ask if she's down, and she'll usually say yes, but I know she's just saying that and going through the motions so I don't get it somewhere else, her words. However, I really don't want to have sex with someone that doesn't want to, even though I have selfishly given in basically every time. Now for the title explanation. I reluctantly and guiltily started watching porn occasionally because I have a fairly high sex drive, coupled with a few fantasies, and sometimes need a release. One time while I was scrolling for something to watch, I came across a picture ad with a topless woman. Before I scrolled up to see the face, I knew exactly who it was. I don't follow any specific nude model or porn star, and have only seen this woman a handful of times. In and of itself, not a big deal, but it got me thinking. I couldn't pick my wife's boobs out of a lineup. I have seen my wife naked, but not voluntarily. My thought quickly led to, I know a porn star's boobs better than my wife's, which was disheartening to hear myself think. There's more to a relationship than sex, and I do love her in spite of my unquenched, selfish desires, but physical intimacy is even more important to me than I had realized before we got married. We'll be fine, as we've been through worse, but I wanted to get this off my chest. The top replies, my ex was that way. We tried couples therapy, but she did not go to personal therapy. I did because I thought it was my fault, like I wasn't enough. After a year, the therapist stopped one session and asked, did you ever consider that it is not you? While I know that sounds silly, the thought never occurred to me. Soon after, we were divorced, and I am much happier. I am not saying divorce, I am saying seek counseling for yourself. Encourage her to seek counseling, and consider going together, 3 separate counselors, BTW. Your marriage needs professional help. This really makes me wonder if she is sex repulsed asexual. There is absolutely nothing wrong with it, but I do think she might need therapy to figure out why she is so unwilling to engage with you sexually. Birth control does not tend to reduce your sex drive that much, for most people, but if she is on anti-anxiety or antidepressant meds, they might be making the problem worse. If she refuses to go, I guess you have to decide if you are okay with this being the rest of your life. It is not an easy decision, and I don't envy you your situation. But, and I say this as an asexual person, there is nothing wrong with you wanting a satisfying sex life. You needs may just be too far apart to meet with each other. The first step is to talk with her and see if she is willing to try therapy. If not, the next move is up to you. I wish you both the best as you deal with this difficult issue. The second reply. You could be right, but I would like to offer the possibility that the wife is telling the truth about the birth control, as I am seeing comments claiming she is lying. When I was on it, my libido went down literally to zero. Zilch. Nothing. I was completely asexual to the point where even the idea of kissing my husband repulsed me. I didn't even find celebrities attractive anymore. Internally, I felt drier than a dessert and it was painful. I had no idea hormonal birth control could cause such an extreme case of low libido, so I did go to therapy, which ended up being a fruitless effort. We even tried redecorating our bedroom, supplements, you name it. I tried different kinds of birth control, too. Another thing that stood out to me was that I, too, did not like my breasts being touched or seen during this period, which is another reason I'm inclined to believe original poster's wife. This went on for a couple years. Getting off the birth control was a last-ditch effort just to see if it had an effect. The difference was more extreme than night and day. I almost instantly saw a difference. Within a month we went from making love maybe once a month to every day. I no longer use hormonal birth control. It nearly destroyed us, especially my husband's self-esteem. It took time for me to stop connecting sex with pain in my head too. People really don't talk enough about the realities and negative effects of hormonal birth control. Now there very well could be other factors. Original poster and wife seem like they have poor communication skills. Original poster's wife has body insecurities. They could consider a vasectomy, etc. But I definitely think the birth control is not helping the situation. The third reply. I want to bring this up as a potential. I had a psychology professor talk about how he had a client. He worked as a psychologist, who had scheduled sex with her husband every weekend, and it was in only one position, in the dark and almost fully clothed, because that was the only one she felt comfortable in after being sawed as a child. She was reliving everything every week. I think the biggest solution is to suggest counseling, individual and couples, to try to work out your own solutions to the lack of intimacy in your marriage. I hope it gets better for you, original poster. Edit. I am not saying she was sawed. I am simply putting this as we don't know her situation. We simply know what she has told original poster. Don't judge everything as manipulation, when it may be defensiveness. TLDR. Not making assumptions, just want to plant this as a possibility and the importance of seeking help.